Hello, welcome to Halloween. Happy Halloween. So we're going to have a general discussion about some respects to paranormal, my beliefs in it, how I see things. Now, I must say this is my belief. Let's talk, excuse me, first off, what I believe. I believe there is something out there that can't be explained fully rationally. It isn't normal, therefore it's paranormal. What people will say to me is, but you're a Christian, you can't believe in ghosts and spirits and souls. Wrong. Because ghosts are actually mentioned in the Bible. Yes, they are. I found 3 of them. The first one is from the Old Testament, 1 Samuel 28, and it talks about Saul visiting the witch of Endor, a medium, who raises the spirit of Samuel to get some prophecies about how a battle will end. In Matthew, the New Testament, 12, Jesus talks about the spirits, the unclean spirits walking the earth. Look in here because I made some notes. Unclean spirits walking the earth, not finding a place to rest. In Matthew 27, just after Jesus is crucified, we talk about the graves of the faithful being rent open and the spirits of the faithful walking the earth, and they are actually seen in the holy city. Sounds a bit like ghosts, that, spirits. Another word for ghosts is spirits. So yes, it is actually mentioned in the Bible. So let's first discuss what's a haunting. There's 2 types of hauntings. Having a coffee. Is what they call residual and active. Residual. The easiest way to describe this, it's like watching a DVD. I would have normally said a video, but there's in time there's going to be people that don't even know what a video is. But it's a video recording, a DVD recording. In other words, you're watching the action. There's no interaction with them. You can ask them questions, nothing happens. But it's just a plain recording. Usually these recordings are full of emotions such as murder, suicide, grief. Now, how do they record? A lot of these sort of put the teeth in. Most of these residual hauntings are in old buildings made of granite, sandstone. And the theory is that the emotion produces so much energy that it is recorded into the fabric of the building. And the fabric of building replays it over and over again. Plausible. A lot of these old buildings have the same sort of hauntings, and again the theory is that when these old mansions have been fallen in disrepute, people have nicked the stones to build their houses and build other mansions and build other castles. So therefore the recordings were took to the new buildings. So that's residual. That's plain simple. It's just a recording. It plays the same thing over and over again. It never changes. It's just basically that, a recording. It's like watching a film. You watch a film, it will follow the same story time and time again. The story will never change, and that's it. Then we come into active hauntings. This is where theories, the spirits, the ghosts come to visit, and you can interact with them. In other words, they are presence in the building now as two people talking. There's two reasons why, theories why they visit. First off, it's a place they love, the place they're happy in, they were happy in, and they don't want to leave it, so therefore they interact. They visit and interact with the people there. The other theory is they are malevolent spirits, probably murderers, so they are bound to it by guilt, by the atrocities they've done, etc. Basically two types of hauntings: residual, recording, active. In other words, you can interact with them. That active ones are also the poltergeists, the tapping on wood, that type of thing. Two types of hauntings. Did I actually mention ghost hunting? I've actually been on 5 ghost hunts. How can I describe them? They can be very interesting. It questions your, in some respects, your sanity, because you begin to think, oh, is this actually happening, or am I imagining it? And it questions your beliefs. I'll talk about 2. I'm not going to mention the places, but talk about 2. The first one, we went there, nothing basically happened. You had a couple of taps and stuff like that. We had a medium there. Again, the Bible refers to mediums, the Witch of Endor. And this medium there. It says the spirits are around, but they don't want to come out. They don't want to interact with us. Basically, there's nothing we can do. And I think I explained this once before, and the way he explained it was quite simple. It's like going to a public bar. You go one night, you're the only person in, nothing's happening, it's a boring evening, no conversation, no laughing, no joking. It's that sort of night. After now you're thinking, I might as well go home. 2 nights later you go into the same pub, they've got a disco on, they've got a buffet on, there's a party, place is crowded. Same building, 2 different days, 2 different atmospheres. And he said it's that sort of thing that can happen in a haunted house, haunted building. So that's the first thing. The second one was a bit more disturbing. First off, this place, and I did actually think we visited it on Halloween, and it was active. It was active. You heard footsteps, you heard tapping, you heard objects moving like chairs, but you could never, because you don't do all this in the light, you do it in pitch black. You turn all the lights out and you just have a torch and you go click to see what's happening. But you heard all this movement. I think there was a case that there was something thrown, like a pebble or something like that. We could never find it, but there was something thrown. It was one of them places all the way through, and we all said it, we felt like we were being watched and being followed It was very unnerving. It was a case that in these hauntings they talk about the energy build-up. And people said if the energy, we felt, all of us felt, if the energy built up too much, we could be in serious danger. There was no doubt about it, we could get physically harmed. Luckily it didn't build up that much, but we felt that it was at that brink that we felt safe and unsafe. It was on that little edge there. There was one incident, we were doing a seance, about 10 of us in a circle, holding hands. Now, the first question asked by the medium, I'm sorry, but I always laugh at it. The first question is anybody there? Not once for yes, twice for no. Just think about that question. Once for yes, okay then, that's right. Twice for no. If they're not twice, how can they knock twice if nobody's there? But that's how it is. That's how it is. That's how it is. But it's just one of them little things that have always made me laugh on these sort of things. Just grab another drink. But we were in this seance, about 10 of us. Anyway, they're asking questions, and I can't remember what question they asked. So it was like, did you die here or did you live here or something like that. And we were expecting a bang. No, tap or tap, or whatever. No, what we got was a verbal response. And it wasn't a yes or yes. It was the typical thing you see on films, that yes. That room smelt. No, that type of thing. People did break winds. People did, well, they didn't actually pee themselves or crap themselves, but I think we're all near that stage, because it was like there. You could tell it was literally in the middle. It went far away, but everybody said they felt the same. It was literally there, in front of them. But that was really... You did begin to walk out and begin to think, I don't think I ever want to come to one of these again. Because we did actually feel in danger. So yeah, from personal experiences, I believe there is something out there. Not normal. That can not be rationally explained. You explain to me how that can be rationally explained. Also the feelings. I've talked about, in one of the autobiographies, the ghost at the works at Priory. That wasn't as intense as that, but I heard what I heard, I felt what I felt, I smelt what I smelt. So yes, I do believe there is something out there. In the preamble I talk about Halloween being the veils between evil and light and dark. And yes, people believe that Halloween is when the dark powers, if you like, the pagan powers, are at its height. I did mention about sprites and spirits. Sprites and spirits. Sprites are quite an interesting one. We're talking about the old religions. We're talking about satyrs. We're talking about gnomes, goblins, fairies. People think of fairies. Fairies. The fairy godmother. I'll grant you 3 wishes. In the olden pagan religion, fairies weren't like that. Fairies was very mischievous creatures. They were supposed to lure people into the woods. They were supposed to harm people to steal their souls, because that's how they reproduce. They didn't reproduce together. They reproduced by harvesting the souls of the living. So next time you watch Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty or any of these sort of fairy tales, just think about that. Fairies were not these benevolent creatures, were actually quite evil. There were supposed to be also demons when Christianity came in, demons in disguise. Then we come on, I mentioned about vampires, werewolves, mummy curses. Vampires is quite interesting. This originated around Transylvania, Romania and stuff like that. Even though there's been sort of talk about these blood-sucking creatures all over the world, that's where the terminology vampire came from. I was watching a documentary about 6 months ago now. They were doing this work in this old village, which meant they had to remove a certain percentage of the graveyard. When they dug up the bodies, and we're not talking bodies from the 16th, 17th, 18th century, we're talking bodies from the 20th century. They were curious to find that the heads had been chopped off, the jaws had been broken open, and a stone being shoved in the mouth. This puzzled these people doing the work, so they called professionals in. And they classed it as, well, these people were probably the villagers suspected these people of being vampires. That was the tradition. Chop off their heads, break the jaw, shove a stone in, then they can't bite. And these were bodies that had been buried in the 20th century. That's not all that long ago. Some of the bodies hadn't fully decomposed. There's certain towns around the Carpathian Mountains, around that area there, that you're not actually allowed to mention the word vampire. You can actually be, from what I've read, you can actually be arrested for it, because then you're invoking a vampire to attack the village. That wasn't anything paranormal, that was just the coaster that dropped off the bottom of the cup. And you come on to werewolves. Lycanthropy, that's their terminology. People who think they're wolves. Scientists reckon a lot of these sort of werewolves attacks and stuff like that were probably people with rabies, gone mad, attacked people, bit into them before they were killed. Rabies is transferred by saliva, which is then transferred onto the other person. They didn't have the real treatment then. They became mad. And that sort of thing. Not really many modern cases of werewolves, except then you have things like the werewolf children, the wolf children, the kids that have been found. There was a case in the late 1900s where they were found in the woods living with a pack of wolves, and then you had the kid in Somalia or somewhere like that that was found with a group of monkeys. And so of course that adds to the legend, you know, people being brought off by wolves and therefore they then turn into this mad animal. And so werewolves is probably rabies. That's what they think. Mummy's Curse. This was made famous after in the late 1900s with the excavations of the Egyptian tombs. It really came to head with the Tutankhamun excavation, because there were a lot of people that sort of died within a year or so of the excavations. So therefore it was the Mummy's Curse. Again, it's one of these things. Now we look at it medically, breaking into these things. They don't, when excavations happen now, they wear masks and surgical masks, probably breathing apparatus. They didn't then. They went in, with the, the Indiana Jones type pattern, Howard Carter. Of course, these tombs have been sealed up all that long. You've got spores, you've got bacteria, growth, mould. People breathe these in and died through infection. Because a lot of them said they died of basically chest infections and stuff like that, chest problems. When you think about it, breathing all these spores and moulds in, not very good for you. So that's the theory of the Mummy's Curse. But there's still places in Egypt that still believe in that and still believe that you should not enter these ancient tombs because they are protected by, again, the old gods. Quite interesting, that. So that's the three I mentioned. Vampires is quite interesting because, like I says, it's within the 20th century and probably even now. Some of these villagers still believe vampires. The other two, more rationally explainable. Then we come on to the Irish. The Irish. Famous ghost in Ireland, the Banshee. This is a quite interesting one because it's not a ghost as such or a spirit, it's a portent of death. The legend goes some of these, and it's usually noble families actually, that when somebody's close to death, this spirit will rise up, cry, this wailing cry, and the first person to hear it would be the person that dies. And you just hoped it was the person that was dying. It even got to a stage where they said they actually started putting animals near the marshlands because this spirit's supposed to rise up through the marshlands and the bogs, because then they'd be the first creature that would hear this wailing, and therefore they would be the first creature that dies. So families have been supposedly cursed by these wailing banshees for centuries. From what I can make out, there's still some families that do actually believe in it. It's like a family curse. I wonder if there's any Irish people that watch my channel. If so, or Irish descendants. What do you think about that? So yeah, Halloween, where the veils between the living and the dead are at the shortest. Part of that is to do with All Souls and All Saints days. That says, I do believe there is something out there. Something not normal that we cannot explain. Faith tells us we are protected. But how protected are we? How many of us have felt after losing a partner or a mother and father, in the time of greatest despair, felt some sort of comfort? Something like a hand on the shoulder, as though to say, there. People have said they felt it. Is this the spirit of the loved one returning to comfort the living? Who knows? But one thing is sure, it's an interesting subject, and if you look on the internet you can find tons of groups that do these haunted house visits and stuff like that. If you go on YouTube you can find lots of videos about supposedly paranormal activity. Some you look at and go, yeah, right, okay, then you can tell that's faked. Others you look at it and go, oh, okay. Can't explain that. Don't know if it's real, don't know if it's Photoshop, but can't explain that. Then you've got the TV programmes. In England we have Most Haunted. In America I know you've got Ghost Hunters, Paranormal Witness, Ghost Collector, then type of things. Then you have to come on to things in the paranormal world like possession. Demons. Possessing the souls of the living. Two of the most famous films is called The Exorcist. That was supposed to be played by accidents and paranormal activity when they were making it. They did actually have an advisor. I think it was from the Jesuit church that advised them on the exorcism practice. There's a film called The Rite. It stars Anthony Hopkins. And even though it's fictional, it's based on the story of a bloke called Father Gary Thomas. Look on YouTube, you will see interviews by him. He is a professional exorcist by the Roman Catholic Church. He was on set advising them about the correct ways to perform exorcisms. And the story is loosely based on his life story. If you ever see that film, it's a good film. The Rite, R-I-T-E, not R-I-G-H-T, R-I-T-E, as in The Rite of Exorcism. It stars Anthony Hopkins, brilliant actor. So yes, Halloween. Today, tradition day of being spooked. Tradition day of sitting down watching horror movies. I must admit, I like the old horror movies. The Hammer House of Horrors and stuff like that. On Sunday, last Sunday, we were talking, me and Joe were talking about the old horror Halloween with the original Scream Queen, Jamie Lee Curtis. What was the original ones? Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. And then you come on to the really slasher movies, which I'm not really bothered with. But then you got like the comedic horror movies such as The Evil Dead. I mean, there's even though it's a horror film, there's a lot of humour in it. So it's the day to sit down with the popcorn, with the lights out and watch the horror movies. And I bet some of you will be doing that tonight. So I think that's it. So I hope you have a happy Halloween. If it's a cold night and things start creaking, just say to yourself, well, it's just the house settling, readjusting to the temperature outside. When you see that shadow in the corner, just think to yourself, well, it's somebody passing in front of a light or a car coming up, casting a shadow in the house. When you hear that woeful moan, just think to yourself, well, it's just the wind blowing past the vents around the back of the house. When you hear the creak on the stairs, well, that's just the wood settling. Or is there something else there in the dark? Something that you don't want to know about. Who knows? Leave me some comments. Let me know what you think. Bye for now.